think a lot of us spend years believing peace is waiting somewhere up ahead. Maybe after life settles down. Maybe after the bills stop piling up. Maybe after we finally become the version of ourselves that we thought we were supposed to be. There's always this feeling that real life hasn't fully started yet. That somehow we're still waiting to arrive. Maybe you felt that too. Maybe your mind races all day long, even when the house is quiet. Maybe you sit down at night completely exhausted, but still feel guilty for not doing more. Maybe part of you misses an old version of yourself, while another part of you is just simply tired of trying so hard all the time. I understand that feeling more than I wish I did. Years ago, my life looked very different than it does now. I worked for Chase Manhattan. I became very successful in that world. Sales came naturally to me. Eventually, I ranked number 13 in the nation. At the time, I thought that kind of success meant I was building a good life. Everything moved quickly back then. There was always another goal, another number, another reason to keep pushing harder. And honestly, part of me really loved it. The pressure, the recognition, the feeling that I was accomplishing something important. Money made life feel stable too. Bills got paid without fear. I could buy things without worrying over every dollar. There was even a season where I drove a sports car. At the time, I really believed that those outward things reflected success. But sometimes, life changes in ways that we never saw coming. Mental health, it has a way of humbling people quietly. At first, I tried pushing through it the same way I pushed through everything else. I kept trying to function normally, even though inside, I was struggling badly. Eventually, there came a point where I simply could not keep up anymore. And when I was forced to resign, it felt like my entire life collapsed underneath me. Not just financially, emotionally too. Because when your worth becomes tied to achievement, slowing down, it doesn't feel peaceful at first. It really feels terrifying. Life changed quickly after that. The stability completely gone. At one point, I lost my home. Everything became uncertain, and suddenly, life turned into trying to scrape together enough money to keep bills paid and food on the table. I think that's why I struggle sometimes when people romanticize simple living. Because sometimes a slower life comes from choice. But sometimes it comes after life breaks you down first. Sometimes quiet life is born out of loss, out of burnout, out of survival. Maybe some of you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe your life doesn't look the way you thought it would either. Maybe you imagine something bigger, more secure, more successful. Maybe you thought by this point in your life, things would feel more settled than they do. I think a lot of women quietly carry grief over the lives they thought they would have. And yet at the same time, there's always this deep exhaustion from constantly trying to keep up. That's the strange place many of us live in now, torn between wanting peace and still feeling pressure to prove ourselves. Even now, I still feel that old drive inside me sometimes. The same drive that once pushed me in the corporate world. It now pushes me even today, to keep going, to write memoirs, create videos, and publish cookbooks, just so many different things. Part of me is still trying to survive, still trying to build stability, still trying to make sure that bills get paid. My mind still races more than I wish it did. And there's days where I physically sit still while mentally running a marathon inside my head. Maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe your body is exhausted, but your thoughts never stop moving. Sometimes I think modern life trains us to live entirely in the future. We're always worrying about tomorrow, always chasing the next thing, always believing peace will finally come later. Later when life gets easier, when money improves, when the house is cleaner, when the kids grow up, when we finally become enough. But somewhere along the way, I realized something heartbreaking. If we spend our entire lives waiting to arrive somewhere else, we miss the life already sitting right in front of us. I think that's what happened to me for a very long time. I rushed past ordinary moments because they didn't seem important enough. Meanwhile, life was quietly happening anyway. Morning sunlight across the kitchen counter, dinner simmering away on the stove, rain tapping against the windows while the dishes sit in the sink. Years ago, I barely noticed those things. Now they feel precious. These days, life is very small compared to what it once was. Most days it's simply just me and Tim and our kitties. We don't have a house constantly full of visitors. We don't live some glamorous life. My own car is broken down, probably end up in the junkyard eventually. Thankfully, Tim still has his truck, and somehow we keep figuring things out one day at a time. Lately, though, even that has felt uncertain. Tim recently lost his job, and around here, there just isn't much work to be found right now. So if I'm being honest, there are moments where the future feels really scary. Moments where my mind stops. It just starts racing again, and I'll catch myself lying awake at night, wondering how everything is going to work out. Maybe some of you understand that feeling too. Maybe you're carrying worries nobody else fully sees. You're trying to hold a home together while quietly feeling overwhelmed inside. Maybe you're exhausted from trying to stay hopeful all the time. I think a lot of people are living with uncertainty right now. And somehow life, it just keeps moving quietly forward anyway. The dishes still need washed. Dinner still needs to be cooked. Laundry still waits in baskets. And the kitties still curl up in the same sunny spots by the windows. And strangely enough, there's something grounding about those ordinary little routines. Because even when life feels fragile, small things still matter. A warm meal still matters. A quiet evening still matters. Lately, I found myself holding tighter to those things than ever before. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because I finally realized peace doesn't always come from having everything figured out. Sometimes, peace, it simply comes from slowing down long enough to notice what is still good in the middle of uncertainty. Years ago, I would have looked at a life like this and thought it meant failure. Now I think differently. because there's a kind of peace inside quiet living that I never noticed when life was louder. That doesn't mean everything is perfect. Far from it. There's still hard days, still fear, worry, uncertainty. Sometimes I still grieve the old version of myself. But along that grief, something else has slowly grown, slowly too. Gratitude. Not because life became easier, but because I finally slowed down enough to actually notice my life while I'm living it. And maybe that's what so many of us are really craving right now. Not perfection, not luxury, just peace. The kind that lets your shoulders finally relax, makes your home feel safe again, allows you to sit quietly for 5 minutes without feeling guilty. I think women especially are carrying so much pressure right now. The pressure to keep up and to succeed and to hold everything together. Pressure to always want more. You know, the world constantly tells us bigger is better, more money, more productivity, more hustle, more achievement. But bigger isn't always better. Sometimes bigger is just louder. And sometimes the soul gets tired of noise. I know mine did. These days, I find comfort in very simple things. Cooking dinner slowly, baking bread, reading quietly, watching rain outside the kitchen window, lighting candles at night, painting whenever I pause long enough to pick up the brush. Painting especially quiets something inside me. For a little while, the noise in my mind softens, and the pressure fades into the background, and time slows down. Maybe you have something like that too. Maybe for you it's gardening, maybe it's quilting, or baking, or just sitting on the porch early in the morning before everyone wakes up. I think we all need places where our spirit can finally breathe again. Because constant striving, it's exhausting. Always trying to prove yourself, always feeling behind. And maybe you're tired too. Maybe you've spent years chasing a version of yourself that still hasn't brought peace. Maybe your house isn't perfect. Your finances aren't perfect. Maybe your mental health isn't perfect. Maybe you're carrying fears nobody else sees. But I want you to know something. Your life does not have to look impressive to still feel meaningful. There's dignity in ordinary living. And there's beauty in caring for a home, in feeding people, and in small, quiet routines that hold life together. The world may overlook those things, but they matter. The older I get, the more I realize that some of the richest part of life are hidden inside ordinary moments that most people rush right past. Fresh sheets on the bed, a sleepy kitty curled nearby, The sound of someone you love walking through the house. The comfort of knowing everyone made it home safely for another night. That is real life. Not someday. Now. And maybe peace isn't hiding in some bigger future after all. Maybe it's been sitting quietly inside these small, ordinary moments the whole time, waiting for us to finally slow down enough to notice it.